Hello, Latin 3. We're back for Chapter 70, A Strange Crop for the Argonauts. I can't figure out a good way to make it so I'm not always just staring down at a piece of paper or frankly, at my almost 100-year-old book, unfortunately. So I've tried a few props and stuff like that, but none of it's worked to the point where we can record it. But here we are. So, Chapter 70, A Strange Crop. However, Jason had not yet finished the entire labor. For Aeetes had ordered him to alone kill the armed men who had grown from the teeth. Afterwards, therefore, after he sprinkled all of the teeth into the field, Jason, worn out by exhaustion, gave himself over to rest, or took a nap. While these men of yours, isti, is an interesting word, istuk, we've seen, I think, previously, but it essentially means of yours, in other words, that we've mentioned before, okay? While these men of yours grew up, a few hours he slept, and just before dusk, or at dusk, really, just before dark, however, he was awakened out of his sleep suddenly, and when he noticed a thing in this way, he noticed that the task had turned out so that, or in such a way that he had predicted. So when however, he awoke suddenly, or having awoken suddenly, he noticed that this thing had turned out as he had predicted. And that's a really interesting construction, actually, because what you're seeing there is a subordinate clause inside of a subordinate clause, and that's the whole reason for using the subjunctive there, is because it's a subordinate clause of a subordinate clause, and that's just one of those things that happens. It's kind of making a copy of a copy of a copy. It just kind of fades away from reality, as it were. In all parts of the field, huge men of huge body, huge in size of body, armed with swords and helmets, were arising in a strange way and out of the ground. And I think mirum in modum, I think, frankly, should have been ablatives, but again, Ritchie has some weak spots in what he does. Once he realized this, Jason was thinking, or thought, that the plan which Medea had given ought not be forgotten or pushed aside. Therefore, he hurled a huge stone. I'm going to use stone instead of boulder because it just makes more sense. He hurled a huge stone in the middle of the men, for Medea had ordered thus. Those men ran to that spot from everywhere, and when everyone wanted to have the stone for himself, I don't know why, a huge argument arose. Soon, with their swords drawn, they began to fight amongst each other. And when most of them were done in this way, the rest were finished off by Jason, or were done in by Jason, worn out by their wounds with no difficulty. And that takes care of Chapter 70. So you see, again, Jason is kind of just a bit of an agent of what other people tell him to do, which seems to be a theme in most Greek mythology of just like, you go here, go do this, and then they do. The real agent here was, in fact, Medea, because she had the whole plan. But he did follow it, and he followed it through in such a way that he was actually successful. So that's Chapter 70, Strange Crop. Lots and lots of action promised and very little delivered, because it is a Greek myth, and you'll find that the stories that we tell about the myths are far more exciting than the myths. So I'm going to push the button now.